Neon Entertainment Spotlight. Hey everyone out there, this is Mike from Neon Entertainment, and this is our first installation to our interview series where we're going to be talking to several entertainers to give you a little bit more insight on what makes them tick. So the first person we're going to be speaking with here is Brian Miller. He's a magician. So Brian, welcome.
Going all right. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I hear you actually have roots in Western New York.
I do. I'm originally from Buffalo. Yeah, that's where I grew up, and I was there until I went off to college, and then I just never came home.
Hey, it happens. I think for a little while, our greatest export was smart people. So the first thing I need to start off with asking you is, and because I've done a little bit of homework on some of the stuff that you've been up to, and you do the Rubiks Cube trick, and I've always used the reference of when something's difficult in business or just in life, I say, well, this is one of those situations you just can't take the stickers off the Rubik's Cube. And you've related to that, but yet it seems like you don't even need to take the stickers off. You just need to throw it in the air, and then it all of a sudden pops into shape.
Yeah, I don't need to take the stickers off, but it doesn't just solve itself when it's in the air, of course. In my shows, actually, as a magician, one of the things that I do is throughout my show, whether I'm close up doing sleight of hand or I'm on stage for most of the stuff like I do for Neon at college campuses, I actually tell the audience right from the beginning that I'm doing sleight of hand, that it's not real, that I'm not doing real magic. I'm not even trying to convince you that it's real magic. And it becomes a theme. I actually teach the audience a little bit about how magic works, about misdirection and about manipulation of attention and beliefs and things like that. I think it's really important for audiences to understand a little bit about magic. I think one of the problems that magicians have had for a long, long time is that people don't respect magic as an art form, and they don't respect it because they don't know anything about it. How can you respect anything that you aren't even allowed to know about? Magicians have kept secrets so tightly. It's like, how do you want anybody to respect what you do if they're not even allowed to know about it? So I think for me, it's been really important to tell people a little bit about it. So like with the Rubik's Cube, I tell them, I do it once, I toss it in the air, it comes down solved, everybody freaks out, and then I show them that I'm setting it up, that I know how to solve it for real, just like those kids you see on YouTube. I'm just one of those YouTube kids that just don't look that age. And I learn how to solve it, and then I, manipulate it right before I toss it in the air. And I show them that, and then I do it again, and they still don't believe me, which I think is hysterical, because I show them how the trick works for real, and then they don't believe me. They think, nah, he's lying to us. It's not really how it works. And I think I get a big kick out of that.
No, that's pretty cool. And so right away that takes me back to my obsession with Arrested Development and Job. Was he was he was kicked out of the Magician Alliance for similar things that you're talking about. Are other magicians kind of frowning down on the fact that you're just being more transparent than them?
Do other magicians frown down on that? I think this is a generational gap in magic right now we're going through. Magicians from my generation, plus or minus, 5 years, I think generally my friends and colleagues, in magic, we've all adopted a much more transparent strategy where we've grown up in the information age. And, you get to this point, if I do a trick and somebody goes, how did you do that? By the time I say the phrase, that old cliche, magician isn't allowed to reveal his secrets. Magician never reveals his secrets. By the time I've gotten halfway through that, they've already found the secret on Google on their phone. There's no secrets anymore. Everything's on Google. Everything's on YouTube. And so for my generation of magicians growing up in the information age, I think for us it was, okay, people know it's not real. They know it's just a trick, and they can find the secrets if they want to. It's not even hard. You just hit a quick Google search, you can find the secrets. So how do we entertain them with magic under those conditions? And I think one of the ways that my kind of generation has decided to do it is to be transparent and say, I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not trying to prove that it's real magic. You know it's not magic. I know it's not magic, but I can make it look like magic for a little bit. And isn't that amazing? I think that's the approach that we've taken.
That's really cool. I'm thinking illusions, Michael, illusions.
Illusions. In the pilot episode of Arrested Development, I don't have time for your tricks right now, Job. Illusions, Dad. You don't have time for my illusions.
Yeah, we're certainly speaking the same language. So, from what I understand, you took this on at a pretty early age. Why magic? Was this something you were kind of entertaining friends and family, like from a high school age or pre-high school age, or when did this whole thing kind of click with you?
Yeah, I have been doing it for a really long time. I mean, I was introduced to it like most kids, 4 or 5 years old, with some magic kits. It was my dad and my grandfather. They were both magic enthusiasts. Never did it professionally, but they just loved magic. And so my dad would do magic tricks for my friends anytime they'd come over to the house. He came into school and did some little mini magic shows for my class when I was in elementary school, and I loved it. I was never embarrassed by it. I feel like a lot of kids would have been embarrassed by it, but I loved it. And my grandfather loved magic, and so I don't know if you remember, NBC every Thanksgiving, I think it was NBC, used to put on a show, The World's Greatest Magicians. And it was every year, like Thanksgiving week. And my dad and I would travel to Long Island, where my grandparents lived, and all my family, my cousins, we would all go there to my grandparents. And my grandfather and I would sit right in front of that. Remember when TVs, they used to seem big and they were only like 14 inches? Remember when TVs were like tiny little TVs? And we would sit right up close to it, and my grandfather and I would watch The World's Greatest Magicians, and then he would help me learn some card tricks from like a book, and after Thanksgiving dinner, I would show my family, show my cousins some new tricks that he had helped me learn. So from a really young age, I was around it all the time, and it helped me develop confidence through. I was bullied in middle school, very typical of a magician. I was a nerd, outcast, geek, whatever. I had no friends. I was bullied through middle school, which is I'm downplaying the severity of that right now, but it's just such a standard magician backstory that and it was really in high school when I started showing people tricks, and I was getting pretty good at it. And people would start coming up to me like, hey, you're the one that does magic tricks. Are you the magic kid? Show me a trick. And all of a sudden, everybody wanted to talk to me. Everybody wanted to invite me to parties. And I developed confidence through magic. So that's kind of where it all started. And that's when I really, really got hooked seriously, when it started attracting people to me, and I started becoming the kind of person I always wished I could be. It did a lot for me in my personal life, and that was. So I owe a lot of my life to magic, and at the risk of sounding cheesy. So.
No, I think that's really sincere, and I appreciate that, candid response and sincere response. And I think that kind of brings me back to like something I wanted to make sure I would not skip. I have a background in video, and we actually produced TEDx Buffalo for a couple of years running. No longer, we're not doing that anymore. But you've had a lot of attention through your TEDx talk. And when you spoke a little bit, and I don't want to speak for you, but when you spoke a little bit about, the interaction with the blind fella, you had expressed the fact that he was able to take that illusion and him and his wife were touched by it, and I think you stayed in touch, right? Can you tell me a little bit about that story?
Yeah. I'm not going to, really go too far into the story because I'd like people to actually check out the talk. But I don't want to, kind of, if you watch it, you haven't seen it before you watch it, I want to kind of ruin it there. But yeah, I did meet a blind gentleman at a restaurant. It's probably 6-7 years ago now. That I was, doing close-up kind of table-to-table stuff at when I was doing mostly local work. And yeah, and I didn't realize, I mean, that's the whole thing, is I didn't realize he was blind. I was really genuinely wrapped up in my evening. I was having a great night. I was just destroying at every table. Everybody was freaking out and laughing, and I was just had on a real high, as you can get into. I just really just waltzed up to the table and introduced myself. I'm the magician. You want to see some magic? And and he's, he looked at me, or I thought he was looking at me, at the time. I didn't know he was blind, and he just looked at me. He said, he said, I'd love to see some magic, but I can't. Unfortunately, I'm blind. And I'll never forget the exact words that he used, and it just stunned me, and it just knocked me back down. And I had nothing that I could do for him. I couldn't think of anything that I could do that was magic for a blind person. So I told him to come back and visit me again sometime. And in that time, they actually surprised me. They came back in before I was ready, and I kind of scrambled, and I came up with something to do for him, where I basically let him in on a trick that we did on his wife, is basically what happened. It was his wife that we actually did the magic on, but I let him in on it without her knowing it, right in front of her. And so he got to be a part of the magic. He got to create magic, and it was amazing. I mean, she was genuinely crying. I mean, she started weeping, and it was it totally changed my approach to magic and how I think about magic moving forward. Because I realized that one, it's magic is not just, it doesn't have to just be a silly art form. It can be silly, but it doesn't have to be like, I don't have to take myself seriously, but magic can be and should be taken very seriously. It's a very old art form, and at its core, it's about belief and wonder and joy. And that was the best experience I'd ever had with magic. And it also changed my opinion of magic, where I'd always thought of it as a visual art form, and apparently it's not just a visual art form. If you can create magic for somebody who can't see, it's not just a visual art form. So yeah, it just knocked me back down, and I rediscovered magic really through that experience.
I think it's really cool that you're able to create that experience for someone else that it seems as if you experienced, that kind of brought you out of your shell. So that's I can relate now that I'm hearing more about your story. That's really cool. Tell me a little bit about like life on the road. I imagine you travel quite a bit, college to college, high schools. I've seen you performed at. How do you appreciate that? Do you like it?
Life on the road. That is a loaded question for me, because what I'm supposed to say is, rock star life, living the dream, what everybody wants. That's the answer that people want you to say, because you're clearly living your dream, right? So the truth is this. I love being in new places. I love meeting new people. In the past year alone, I've been in, I think, 11 countries across 3 or 4 continents. I was all over the States, in like 20 or 30 states in the past year. And then I was in Europe in a handful of countries. I was in the Middle East. I was in Africa, and all over Asia, in 4 countries in Asia. So performing and speaking, and not on vacation. So what I'll say to that is, being in new places, meeting new people all over the world, all over the country, that to me is the best part about it. But traveling to get there is not. I am not, like some of my friends who do this, they love traveling. Like they love airports, and they love rental cars, and they love hotels. They love life on the road. If you could just beam me to the new place, I could do the show, and you can beam me back home, and I could watch Netflix with my wife. That would be my ideal way to do what I do. The actual process of traveling, I enjoyed it for about a year, and then that kind of like, oh, rock star, I'm on the road, that whole like fantasy from teenage years, that wore off really quick. And it's just, they're really long days. I mostly don't get travel days where I have like a break in my calendar. So usually I'm traveling the same day as the show. So I'll, wake up in Minnesota at, 3 o'clock in the morning, get a rental car back to the airport by 4, get on my first flight at 6, get on my second flight at 11, get into a new place in, say, Florida at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, get a rental car, drive for 2 hours to wherever the show is, set up for an hour and a half, do an hour show, do a meet and greet, get back to the hotel, sleep for 3 hours, get up at 3 a.m. to get the rental car back to do it again the next day. It really wears on you when you do that. It doesn't make you love travel, at least for me. So.
No, I was actually telling my wife I was doing a little travel not too long ago, and I can relate to that because I had to fly to Coney. The meeting was in Coney Island, which is a very strange place. If you've been there. And I was back. was back by the end of like the workday, and it almost felt like time travel.
Yeah. Oh, it totally does. It's funny you said time travel, because when I was just coming back from Asia, I left the final stop on the tour was in Guam. So I was coming back to LA. I actually couldn't even come all the way back home to where I live in Connecticut, because after that entire 2.5-week tour, I had a speech to give 2 days later in LA. So I just said to my host, I'm like, just drop me off in LA. You got to take me through there anyway. Don't send me all the way back to Connecticut, because I'd have to fly back to LA the next day. So that's how crazy it was. And when you leave Guam, you're on the very end of the time zone. Like, it resets right as you come back to towards the States. So it took almost 24 hours to do all the flights to get to LA. And what happened was, I left on my first flight at 6 a.m. from Guam. And after 2 flights and almost 24 hours of travel, I landed in LA the same day at 5 a.m. I landed an hour earlier than I left after 24 hours of travel. And it was so disorienting. I was like, time is not real. Time is an illusion.
And you would know best.
I would.
What do you like doing most? Do you like the college circuit? Do you like the high schools? I know you did high school for TED, or I'm sure you do larger venues and things like that too. So what's your favorite kind of pocket in performing?
That's a really good question, and that the answer to that question kind of changes day to day. I love colleges. I've been doing college shows now for almost 7 years with Neon Entertainment. And so I built that act while I was a student in college. And so I feel like I built an act that was very, that was the kind of act that college students would want to see. And I developed a lot of my humor and my presentation style based around that audience. So I feel at home when I'm at colleges. Having said that, college campus shows have changed as the times have changed and as technology's changed, and students and all of us are so into our phones and tablets and things like that. Sometimes you find yourself fighting for their attention more than you used to, where like when I was in school, there was a magician. We all wanted to see the magician, because what else were you going to do that night? Just sit in the dorm and play video games again? So we would all go. Now there's so much competing for your attention, even during the show. This sounds like a joke, but this actually happened about 2 years ago. I was on stage and at a college, and in the front row, I could see a kid. He was on his phone, which whatever. Everybody's on their phone. You can't fight that. You just power through it these days. But I could see from the stage that he was looking me up on YouTube. I was like, I'm on stage. It was just such a weird moment. And like, on one hand, I appreciate that you're looking me up, but you're watching videos of me doing things like I'm doing right now, like a year ago at similar audiences. Like, it didn't make any sense. It was so. I do love college shows, but the climate's changing with the audiences, so you do need to change and adapt to it. I'm finding a lot of fun. I'm finding a lot of fun in figuring out how to earn their attention, to earn their respect. It's become a kind of a mini challenge for me every night when I get up on stage and go, they don't just give me their attention or give me their respect because I'm the guy on stage anymore. Like, that's just not how that age group works. So you have to earn it. And there's something kind of cool about that, you have to be like, I got to give you a reason to put down your phone, which has everything on the entire planet and the known universe and that ever will be on it. And I want you to pay attention to me for an hour instead. And so earning that, I think you get better reactions and better shows when you earn their attention, when you earn their respect. So I enjoy that. But I also do a lot of work for corporate audiences, kind of corporate and high-end private event stuff in New England. And I come from a world of academia. My parents are academics and in the corporate world, and I'm very comfortable with that group. And so at a different level, they give you their undivided attention and nothing but respect from the time you walk on stage. So I can slow down with corporate audiences. I can do more interesting presentations. I can talk for a few minutes to set up a trick or to set up a performance, to set the context, to set the mood, and they'll listen to me. At a college campus, if you spend longer than 20 seconds without a trick or a joke, they're going to tune you out and go back to their phones and wait for the next trick or joke. So it's a very different audience there. So.
Yeah, and I can see that because, like I said, the background in video, we're seeing that the audiences are getting slimmer, and the attention span is getting slimmer and slimmer. So one of the last things I want to ask you, and like I said, I appreciate your time today, is the red solo cups at your TEDx talk. What was up with that, and did you play beer pong with any of those after?
What was up with the red solo cups at the TEDx talk? That's a sore subject for me because I, with due respect to who has become a very good friend, the guy who put on, he's a local high school teacher who is magnificent, unbelievable high school teacher who does cool elective for his students, like a truth talks and truth seminar, like really cool electives, or like in high school he gets them to engage in philosophy and stuff. Like, it's amazing what he's doing. And he's the one hosting this TEDx conference at a high school, which is really hard to do.
Right.
And he's become a really good friend, and he's awesome. So now that I've pumped him up enough, if he ever hears this, the solo cups, his students it was a completely student-run TEDx conference, so that needs to be said. A lot of people don't. There's no context when you watch a TEDx talk on YouTube. You don't know stuff like that.
Right.
It was totally student-run, and the students were looking for something red to create for the background, for an interesting backdrop. And they thought it'd be very artistic, very economical. They were just thinking, solo cups are red. Like, they weren't thinking like beer pong college. They're like 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds running this conference, basically, And they spent weeks gluing together this huge array of solo cups to make this background. And when I walked in the night before for like the dress rehearsal kind of tech stuff, and I saw that, and I did ask Parag, who's the adult, this teacher that runs the conference, I said, are those staying? He's like, yeah, the students thought this was really cool, and clearly they were all pumped up about it. So I didn't say anything. I made some other recommendations that, because I'm a performer, and I know what things look like visually to an audience, there were other things that they had going on that I recommended, being the only performer speaking that day. There's like 12 speakers at our conference, and I was the only one who's used to being on stage, right, let alone does it for a living. I made a few recommendations that I'm glad I did, but there was nothing I could do about that. They were set on having those red solo cups, and I spent weeks for it. I thought it looked terrible, and to this day, I think it looks ridiculous, and it hurts me every time I see that thumbnail pop up on YouTube. Having said that, my TEDx talk has 2.6 million views. It's one of the statistically most popular of all time, with like a 98.6% approval rating on YouTube, which is almost impossible. And I say that not to tout myself, but I say that to tell anybody who's giving a TEDx talk that might not be well run, or that might be kind of shoddy video or shoddy whatever. If you have a great message, it doesn't matter, right? None of that stuff matters. Bad video, bad, the cups. And actually, stuff like that, actually, sometimes people click on it just like, what in the world is this, long-haired, wearing a suit, fedora dude, in front of a bunch of red solo cups going to be talking about? And sometimes there's something to be said for looking unusual that they're going to click like, what is this about? And then they go, oh man, I didn't expect this. And they get, kind of pleasantly surprised. I will say that when that talk dropped, one of the first days when it hit Reddit, the thread name on Reddit was TEDx Cups was the thread name on Reddit. Some random person found the talk and put it on Reddit with TEDx Cups as the title. So say what you want, I guess. But yeah, that's the story behind that.
No, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, thanks for listening in. Hope this was informative. Continue to follow us at neon-entertainment.com. See what's new, what's coming up, and we're excited about this series.
Neon Entertainment.